Before I introduce Sheila, I just want to quickly quote from an article which was published in this month's Euro Money. I think I'm allowed to quote Euro Money here, since I believe II is part of the sprawling Euro Empire. And it talks about the US product, and quotes from, I think, an anonymous banker. And it says, in the absence of legislation, many feel that the issuers have done as much as they possibly can to protect bondholders. But some reckon that the situation is still too uncertain. Until the FDIC provides a statement on its position, there is a vacuum in the market, and the market abhors a vacuum, observes one. That, if you like, would be the challenge that I set Sheila, who may or may not be able to respond to that today. Just a quick word on Sheila, who probably requires no introduction at all. The chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is here effectively as the go-to regulator, for want of a better expression, for all the current bonds in the US. A number of interesting features caught my eye in her extensive and impressive profile, one of which is that she writes books for children as well. I know there are none of us here children. It's occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, Sheila is the J.K. Rowling of the covered bond market. I was wondering what Harry Potter would make of all of this if he was here today. But in order to keep time down, Sheila, I would like to welcome you very much to this conference, and I will be delighted to invite you to take the podium in my stead.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. You know, one of the great things about the financial market is how they harness the incredible entrepreneurial spirit that makes you at the center of the financial world. This spirit constantly provides cutting-edge innovations that are the lifeblood of the capital markets. And notwithstanding the current problems we're having with some of those markets, I continue to believe that. The markets, in turn, are an essential engine for American and world economic growth. Markets change, markets adapt, and I think it's interesting that as new questions arise regarding the origination distribute model and securitization model, that the market itself is now seeking out additional diversified means of funding. And so I'm very pleased to be here today at the first Covered Bond Summit. All new to America, covered bonds are not a new financial product in the global market, as this group certainly knows. The European covered bond market is well established and dates back to the 18th century in Germany. Today, this market is a central part of Europe's financial system. In the U.S., as you know, American institutions have already used prime mortgages to back first U.S. dollar-denominated issues for the European market. Honestly, this was done in consultation with our staff and others. Bank of America and Washington Mutual have successfully gone to the market with substantial covered bond deals. And I know that more transactions may be in the works, which is, I assume, why we're all here today. Banks are looking at the emerging market to determine if this might be a new, lower-cost, longer-term way of collateralized borrowing. And as a regulator, I must say that I'm looking at this market with growing interest because I think, in addition to providing a new source of liquidity, it may have some certain advantages over the securitization model by keeping the assets on the balance sheet, both from a capital perspective as well as potentially providing more incentives for strong underwriting. So far, American banks have looked mostly toward the well-developed European market for potential investors. But we can't expect that domestic investors will take an interest in future deals or let it go. We've been following these developments with great interest, but we haven't adopted any position in favor or in opposition because, along with our other regulators, we want to make sure we fully understand the implications for banks' risk. And I must add as a caveat, though I may be the go-to regulator, certainly from a resolution perspective, as deposit insurer. We are the go-to regulator, but that would not, I would not in any way suggest that the primary regulator of the institutions who are considering these deals obviously need to work with their primary regulator as well. Let me say that we do welcome innovation that improves bank liquidity and access to funding, especially in these times. Our job as supervisor and deposit insurer is to assess any risk that these innovations may pose and to evaluate the pros and the cons. As most of you, I'm sure, are aware, funding and liquidity are always critical for banks, and for that matter, any other company. And bank funding has changed. Today, insured deposits fund well less than half of commercial bank assets. Contrast that with 15 years ago when the number stood at nearly 60%. It's no surprise that the industry is looking for new sources of funding, and I will leave it to your other speakers to go over the business pros and cons of covered bonds. I'm sure they will have some interesting perspective on the future development of this market.